Hello, friends. I am so excited because I have been going through all the books at my house and looking at our favorites and making piles of books that we want to read. And I have come across a bunch of favorites that we like to read at my house. So I picked out one that I want to share with you this week, and you can listen to Mrs. O read it as many times as you want throughout the week. But every day I'm going to post a special activity to go with the book. And just like when we read a book in the classroom, we have vocabulary words that we need to understand before we read the story. So I have a couple of vocabulary words I want you to listen for in our story today. And it's kind of a long one, but it's a really good one, and my own kids love it. So I think it'll be a really good book since we're stuck at home, because there's lots of really fun things we can do with it, okay? So the book that we're going to read, first of all, is Roxaboxen. Roxaboxen. And the author is Alice McLaurin, and the illustrator, the person who drew the pictures, is Barbara Cooney. Roxaboxen. And who has anybody ever built like a make-believe town? Maybe you're playing with Legos or blocks. I know in the classroom, many of you have made make-believe castles and cities. Well, this story is about a make-believe town. And it's important to know the word neighborhood before we read this story. So Mrs. O wrote down a couple of words here. Since I don't have my big fancy board, I have to do it kind of old school way and just put it on a piece of paper. So here, the first one is the word neighborhood. Say neighborhood. Neighborhood. And neighborhood is the area and the people that live around us. So think about for a minute who lives in your neighborhood. Now, some of you kind of might live not really close to a lot of people, but think about kind of the area around where you live and who's nearby, and that would be your neighborhood. Okay? So Roxaboxen is a neighborhood, and when you hear that word, you're going to know that that's the area surrounding and the people surrounding, okay? Another word that you're going to hear in our story is desert. And a lot of us know what a desert is, but it's really dry, isn't it? And it's an area of land that's very dry. There's not a lot of water, and it's mostly covered with sand. And not a lot of plants grow in the desert. And if plants do grow in the desert, they have to be special kinds of plants that don't need a lot of water. So desert is a word that you're going to hear in the story. Ford. And I'm not talking about a vehicle like a Ford truck. That's not the one I'm talking about. I'm talking about if you're getting ready to cross a river, you're going to cross at like the shallow part by walking slowly and wading so the water only goes to about your knees. That would be ford. I will ford across the river. Okay? And the last one is a mayor, the chief elected person of the city. So when you have a city or a town and you turn 18 years old, you can vote. And one of the things you might vote for, it is who is going to be in charge of your town or your city. And they're going to make some of the hard decisions or the laws. And that would be the mayor. All right, let's go through those words one more time. Say them after me. Echo. Ford. Desert. neighborhood, mayor. Okay, listen for those words in the story and remember that I said Roxaboxen is a story about, well, actually, I don't know if I told you this. It's a story about a neighborhood, and these kids, they work together to make a pretend make-believe neighborhood. Okay, so here's the story. Roxaboxen. Marion called it Roxaboxen. She always knew the name of everything. There, across the road, it looked like any rocky hill. Nothing but sand and rocks. Some old wooden boxes, cactuses, greasewood, and thorny bushes, but it was a very special place. The street between Roxaboxen and the houses curved like a river, so Marion named it the River Road. And after that, you had to ford a river to reach Roxaboxen. Make sure you can see the picture. Of course, all of Marion's sisters came. Anna May, Frances, little Jean, Charles from next door, even though he was 12. Oh, and Eleanor, naturally, and Jamie with his brother Paul. Later on, there were others, but these were the first. Well, not really the first. Roxaboxen had always been there and must have belonged to others long before. When Miriam dug up a tin box filled with round black pebbles, everyone knew what it was. It was a buried treasure. Those pebbles were the money of Roxaboxens. You could still find others like them if you looked hard enough. So some days became treasure hunting days, with everybody trying to find that special kind. And then on other days, you might just find one without even looking. A town of Roxaboxen began to grow, traced in lines of stone. Main Street first, edged with the whitest ones, and then the houses. And Charles made his of the biggest stones. After all, he was the oldest. And at first the houses were very plain, but soon they all began to add more rooms. The old wooden boxes could be shelves or tables or anything you wanted, and you could find pieces of pottery for dishes, and round pieces were the best. So it looks like they're starting to build a neighborhood, but they're not using very many things, just things they found. Later on, there was a town hall. Marion was our mayor, of course, and that was just the way she was. Nobody minded that she was in charge. And after a while, they added other streets. Frances moved to one of them and built herself a new house outlined in desert glass, bits of amber, amethyst, and sea green, and a house of jewels. Ooh, that Frances, she made a nice little house for herself, didn't she? And because everybody had plenty of money, there were plenty of shops. Jean helped Anna May in the bakery. Pies and cakes and bread baked warm in the sun. There were 2 ice cream parlors. Was Paul's ice cream the best or Eleanor's? Everybody kept trying them both. In Roxaboxen, you can eat all the ice cream you want because it's their city. They made it. Everybody had a car. All you needed was something round for a steering wheel. Of course, if you broke the speed limit, then you had to go to jail. See right there, the sign says jail. The jail had cactuses on the floor to make it uncomfortable. And Jamie was the policeman. Anna May, quiet little Anna May, was always speeding. You'd think that she would like to go to jail. She just kept doing it. But if you could go as fast as the wind, there was no speed limits for horses, and you didn't have to stay on the roads. All you needed for a horse was a stick and some kind of bridle, and you could gallop anywhere. They're just pretending with the sticks, aren't they? Sometimes there were wars. Once there was a great war, boys against girls, and Charles and Marion were the generals, and the girls had Fort Irene, and they were all Girl Scouts. The boys made a fort at the other end of Roxaboxen, and they were all bandits. Oh, the raids were fierce, loud, and whooping, and the stamping of horses. The whirling swords had sharp thorns, but when you reached your fort, you were safe. Roxaboxen had a cemetery in case anyone died, but the only grave in it was for a dead lizard. Each year, when the cactus bloomed, they decorated the grave with flowers. Sometimes in the winter, when everybody was at school and the weather was bad, no one went to Roxaboxen at all, not for weeks and weeks. But it didn't matter. Roxaboxen was always waiting. Roxaboxen was always there. And spring came, and the ocotillo blossomed, and everybody sucked the honey from its flowers, and everybody built new rooms, and everybody decided to have jeweled windows. And that summer, there were 3 new houses on the east slope and 2 new shops on Main Street. And so it went. The seasons changed and the years went by, and Roxaboxen was always there. It's kind of like when you make a fort outside. The fort's always there waiting for you, even if you're not playing in it. The years went by and the seasons changed until at last the friends had grown tall, and one by one they moved away to other houses in other towns. So you might think that that was the end of Roxaboxen. But oh no, because none of them ever forgot Roxaboxen, not one of them ever forgot. Years later, Marion's children listened to stories of that place and fell asleep dreaming dreams of Roxaboxen. Gray-haired Charles picked up a black pebble on the beach and stood holding it, remembering Roxaboxen. More than 50 years later, Frances went back and Roxaboxen was still there. She could see the white stones bordering Main Street, and there she had built her house. The desert glass still glowed. And on a hill on the southeast corner of 2nd Avenue and 8th Street in Yuma, Arizona, there's a place once known as Roxaboxen. The events in this book really happened to Alice McLaren's mother. With the aid of her childhood manuscript, the memories of relatives and the letters and maps from people who played in Roxaboxen, was able to recreate this magical world as if she played there herself. And therefore, she wrote this book in memory of her mother. The end. If you liked that book, Roxaboxen, maybe that's a book that your mom and dad can order or look on YouTube. Mrs. O's not that good at reading the story and showing you the pictures on here. It's a lot harder than I thought it would be. But I know that you were listening, and I know that you were listening and paying attention, and that Roxaboxen sounded like a really fun place to be, a great neighborhood. Thank you guys for sharing my story today. And remember, it's going to be our story for the rest of the week, and I might have another book to pair with it later on this week. But at home, I want you and your parents to really talk about those vocabulary words that we heard in this story. Ford, when we crossed and waded the river, that would be the shallow part to get to Roxaboxen. Desert, the neighborhood that they built in Roxaboxen. And do you remember who the mayor was of Roxaboxen? And nobody minded that she was the mayor. So I was thinking a little bit today, and I was thinking, what could be a fun thing we could do today after listening to this story and talking about the vocabulary words? What could we do today with this story? And immediately I thought about Jack. Shh, don't tell. But I went, and he has a box, his big rock collection upstairs, right? And I borrowed some of his rocks because I thought if it stopped raining today and you get outside, you can go and find some rocks and maybe keep them in a little bag or a box. And I'm going to share with your moms and dads a bunch of fun activities that you can do with rocks. But I'm just going to show you 2 activities right now with the rocks that I borrowed from Jack's rock collection, okay? And if you don't really have any rocks around your house, think about something else outside that you could use. But most of us have rocks that we can find and look for, and my kids love to get soapy water and wash them up and let them dry in the sun, and then we use them for all kinds of things. But I'm going to show you 2 activities, so I'm going to pull the screen down so you'll be able to see the table, but you won't be able to see me anymore. So the first activity is a math activity that we like to play in class, and instead of using chips, we're just going to use rocks. So you're going to need somebody to play this with you, okay? All right, so I have some rocks here, and let's say I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rocks, okay? And we in math have to be good at understanding the partners to make 5. So you have whoever you're playing with, they close their eyes, and you quickly hide some of your rocks and say, open. And they have to tell you how many rocks are hiding under the hands. Let's say they say 3. So 2 and 3 makes 5. So then on my paper, I would also write that as an equation. Let's see if Mrs. O can do this upside down and backwards and everything else. 2 plus 3 equals gosh, I'm out of practice. 2 and 3 makes 5. Okay, that was the equation. So then it's their turn. So you close your eyes, and they put some under their hands, and they say, open. Okay, and I only have 1 rock out, so how many is under my hand? And you would say 4. Okay, so 4 and 1 makes 5. Makes 5. Okay, and that's another equation you can make. So then you switch again and have that person close their eyes. Open. Okay, I don't have any rocks out there. So how many rocks are hiding under my hands? 5, that's right, 5. So then we can write the equation for that. 0 and 5 equals 5. Okay, and you keep playing and practicing the different partners to 5 because that should be something easy that you should be able to do. The other activity I wanted to just quickly show you is that if you find some bigger rocks, your moms and dads have our sight words, our tricky words that we've been practicing. So a fun thing that you could do is have somebody or you write our tricky words onto the rocks. And then make some sentences with the words. And Mrs. O knows that this is not one of our words, but it is a word that you can easily read. So now, what sentence have I made? That's right, one red hat. So you can have a whole collection of words and practice making sentences and reading with them. So I'm going to send some other activities that you guys can do throughout the week with rocks. And yesterday I sent some fun things for you to do with reading and math. So I hope you enjoyed our story Roxaboxen, and I will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye.